The massive screens in Earth's Defense Command Center blinked with red warning lights. Admiral James Walker stood with his hands behind his back, his gray eyes fixed on the incoming data. The deep space sensors had picked up something unprecedented. A fleet of over 10,000 ships entering the solar system. "Sir, the objects have just passed Jupiter's orbit," reported Officer Tom White, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "Their speed is beyond anything we've ever recorded." Admiral Walker nodded slowly. After 30 years of service, he had waited for this day. "Send the alert to the Council. Priority Level Alpha." Within minutes, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in the underground chamber beneath Geneva. 20 of Earth's top military and civilian leaders sat around a circular table, their faces illuminated by the soft blue light of data screens. "Ladies and gentlemen," Walker began, "what we've prepared for during the last 50 years has finally happened. The Galactic Empire has arrived." The room remained silent. There was no panic, no shocked gasps. These people had trained for this moment their entire lives. Dr. Anna Thompson, head of Earth's Science Division, stepped forward. "Our quantum sensors confirm their fleet composition. 1 command ship, 8,000 warships, and 2,000 support vessels." She paused, allowing a small smile to cross her face, exactly as our deep space probes predicted. The council members exchanged knowing looks. Humanity had not been idle during the past 5 decades. They had watched, learned, and prepared. A new alert flashed across the main screen. "Admiral," Officer White called out, "they're sending a scout ship ahead of the main fleet. Estimated arrival in Earth orbit, 30 minutes. "Right on schedule," Walker muttered. He turned to the council. "Should we proceed with Protocol 7? Council President Michael Brown stood up. His dark skin contrasted with his white hair, evidence of decades spent planning for this confrontation. "The vote was made 20 years ago, Admiral. We all knew this day would come. Proceed as planned." Around the world, hidden installations began powering up. Deep beneath the oceans, in mountain bunkers, and in orbital stations, humanity's defensive systems quietly came online. To any outside observer, Earth still appeared to be a relatively primitive planet with basic space capabilities. The Empire's scout ship entered orbit with a flash of blue light. It was massive, nearly a mile long, its hull gleaming with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb light. A transmission burst from the vessel, automatically translated by Earth's computers. A hologram appeared in the center of the command center. The alien commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled skin reflecting the light. "Primitive world designation Earth. This is Captain Vex of the Galactic Empire's 7th Scout Fleet. Your world has been chosen to join the Empire. Prepare for annexation. Resistance is..." Admiral Walker pressed a button, cutting off the transmission mid-sentence. He turned to Officer White. "Send our prepared response." Around the scout ship, space itself seemed to ripple. Hidden quantum satellites activated, creating a containment field that the Empire's sensors couldn't detect. The scout ship's engines flared as it tried to move, but it remained frozen in place. Captain Vex's hologram reappeared, this time with visible concern on his alien features. "What is the meaning of this? Your technology level should not..." "Captain," Walker interrupted, his voice calm and measured. "This is Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Forces. We've been expecting you." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "Your historical records show that you've conquered 10,000 worlds. Every single one surrendered when faced with your fleet." Walker stepped closer to the hologram, his expression firm. "But Earth is different. We've spent 50 years studying your empire, preparing for this moment. You did not find us. We allowed you to approach. This is your first and only warning. Leave Earth's space or face the consequences." The alien captain's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "You dare. The Empire cannot be threatened by..." "This is not a threat," Walker replied. "This is simply a fact. Earth is closed to your empire. Spread the word. With another press of a button, the containment field released the scout ship. It immediately jumped away, racing back to the main fleet. In the command center, the council members watched the retreating vessel on their screens. They knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the Empire decided to show its full strength. But Earth was ready. Humanity had not spent the last 50 years idle. The Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating the human race. 3 days after the scout ship's retreat, the Empire's response arrived. The massive Imperial command ship, nearly the size of a small moon, moved to the front of the alien fleet. Its golden hull sparkled in the distant sunlight, a display of power meant to intimidate. In Earth's Defense Command Center, Admiral Walker watched the main screen as a new transmission came through. The hologram that appeared showed a tall figure seated on an ornate throne. The alien emperor wore flowing robes decorated with strange symbols, and a crown that seemed to be made of living metal. "I am Emperor Marcus Aurelius VI," the alien ruler announced, his voice deep and careful. He had chosen a human name from Earth's history, thinking it would help him appear more relatable. "Your response to our scout ship was unexpected." Walker stood straight, hands clasped behind his back. "Your Majesty, Earth acknowledges your transmission." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. They were completely black except for small dots of red light in their centers. In 10,000 years, no world has dared to challenge the Empire. Yet here you stand, a young species on a single planet, thinking you can resist us. Behind Walker, the Defense Council watched in silence. Dr. Thompson quietly worked at her console, monitoring the quantum shield readings. "We offer you one chance," the Emperor continued. "Join the Empire as a vassal state. Your people will serve as workers, soldiers, and engineers. In return, you will receive our protection and technology." His expression hardened. "Refuse, and we will destroy your civilization." Walker looked at Council President Brown, who gave a slight nod. They had prepared for this moment for decades. "Emperor Marcus Aurelius VI," Walker spoke clearly. "Earth's answer is simple. No." The silence that followed was deafening. The Emperor's face showed genuine surprise for the first time. "You dare," he began, but Walker cut him off. "We do dare," Walker said. "Your Empire's greatest weakness has always been its pride. You believe you're invincible because no one has ever truly fought back." He allowed himself a small smile. "That changes today." The Emperor's expression turned to rage. "Then you choose extinction. Our fleet will." Suddenly, the Emperor's hologram flickered. His eyes widened in shock as new information reached him. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our scans, they can't penetrate your atmosphere." "How?" Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "Your scanning technology relies on standard energy wavelengths. We've been bending those wavelengths around Earth for decades. You're seeing what we want you to see." Around the planet, Earth's hidden defenses continued to power up. Quantum shields strengthened, and weapon systems came online. Decades of reverse-engineered alien technology, combined with human innovation, had created a defense network unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. "You have 1 hour to retreat beyond Mars orbit," Walker stated. "After that, we will consider any Imperial ships within that boundary as hostile." The Emperor stood from his throne, his rage visible even through the hologram. "You primitive creatures think you can give me orders. I will personally oversee your world's destruction." "Your Majesty," Walker replied calmly, "we're not giving orders. We're giving you a chance to avoid embarrassment. The Empire has never faced a real defeat. Ask yourself, are you willing to risk being the first Emperor to fail?" Without waiting for a response, Walker ended the transmission. The command center erupted in focused activity as officers prepared for the coming battle. "They'll attack," President Brown said quietly. "His pride won't let him retreat." Walker nodded. "Yes, but that's what we planned for." The Empire never learned to handle defeat because they've never experienced it. He turned to face the council. It's time to teach them that lesson. Above Earth, the quantum shield network hummed with power, invisible to Imperial sensors, but stronger than anything they could imagine. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this war, and they had no intention of losing. As the Imperial fleet prepared for their attack, Admiral Walker called an emergency briefing in the deepest level of the Defense Command Center. The room was filled with holographic displays showing Earth's hidden defense systems, each one representing decades of careful planning. 50 years ago, Walker began, addressing the gathered officers. We detected the Empire's first probe at the edge of our solar system. Most of you weren't even born then, but that day changed everything. The main screen showed an old recording. A small alien ship, barely visible against the stars, passing by Neptune. Earth's leaders at the time had made the crucial decision. They would hide their discovery and prepare in secret. Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her gray hair neatly tied back. Project Guardian Shield began that same year, she said, pressing a button that revealed a complex network of satellites and stations hidden around Earth. We realized the Empire's technology had one major weakness. They never expected anyone to develop different scientific approaches than their own. The display showed Earth surrounded by an invisible web of quantum fields, while the Empire relied on standard energy weapons and faster-than-light drives. Humanity had taken a different path. They had developed technology that worked on principles the Empire had never considered. Their entire civilization is built on energy manipulation, Dr. Thompson continued. But we focused on quantum mechanics and gravity control. To them, it's like we're playing an entirely different game. Officer White brought up new images showing the Empire's ships. Their sensors can't detect our quantum fields because they don't know what to look for. It's like trying to use a radio to see ultraviolet light. They're searching on the wrong frequencies entirely. In another part of the display, they could see the Empire's fleet moving into attack formation. They still hadn't realized that Earth's seemingly primitive satellites were actually part of the most advanced defensive network ever created. But our greatest advantage, Walker said, is that we've had 50 years to study them. We know every weakness in their ships, every flaw in their tactics. They attack the same way every time because it's always worked before. They'd gotten lazy. The briefing was interrupted by a priority alert. One of Earth's deep space probes had detected movement from the Imperial fleet. They're launching fighters, Officer White reported. Looks like they're testing our defenses. Walker smiled. Right on schedule. Time to show them our first surprise. He turned to Dr. Thompson. Activate the outer ring defense grid. Around Earth, hundreds of hidden platforms came to life. They had been disguised as debris, old satellites, or simply hidden behind quantum fields. Now they powered up, ready to defend the planet. Remember, Walker addressed his officers, we're not just fighting for Earth. The Empire has enslaved thousands of worlds because no one ever showed them they could be beaten. Today we change that. Today we show the galaxy that freedom is possible. The first wave of Imperial fighters approached Earth's orbit. They were sleek, powerful ships that had brought terror to countless worlds. But as they entered the quantum defense grid's range, something unexpected happened. Their engines began to sputter. Their weapons wouldn't fire. The quantum fields didn't just block their attacks. They actively disrupted any Imperial technology that relied on standard energy patterns. 50 years of preparation, Walker said quietly, watching the confused Imperial fighters struggle. While they thought we were just a primitive species barely reaching space, we were building something they couldn't even imagine. The fighters began to retreat, but the demonstration had served its purpose. Earth had shown just a tiny fraction of its true capabilities, and already the Empire was discovering that this battle would be unlike any they had fought before. In the command center, humanity's defenders watched with quiet confidence. The real battle hadn't even begun, but already they had proven what they had known for 50 years. The Empire wasn't invincible. They had just never faced an enemy who was truly prepared for them. The Emperor's patience finally broke. After watching his fighter squadrons retreat in confusion, He ordered a full-scale attack. 1,000 Imperial warships moved forward, their golden hulls gleaming against the blackness of space. In Earth's Defense Command Center, Admiral Walker watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. "They're using the arrow formation," he noted, "just like they did at the Battle of Centaurus." "Sir," Officer White called out, "enemy ships are charging their main weapons." Walker nodded to Dr. Thompson. "Time to show them our gravity weapons." Around Earth, hidden defense platforms activated. They didn't fire beams or missiles. Instead, they created concentrated gravity fields that could be shaped and directed like invisible hands. The first wave of Imperial ships fired their energy weapons. Massive beams of light shot toward Earth, powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. But they never reached their target. The quantum shields bent the energy around the planet, making the attacks look like rivers of light flowing around a stone. "Now," Walker ordered, "target their lead ships." Earth's gravity weapons activated. To the Empire's shock, their front line of warships suddenly became incredibly heavy. The artificial gravity crushed their engines and bent their hulls. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being crushed like empty cans. "Impossible," the Emperor's voice boomed through an open channel. "What sorcery is this?" Dr. Thompson allowed herself a small smile. "Not sorcery, Your Majesty, just good science." The Imperial fleet tried to adjust their strategy. They spread out, thinking to avoid the gravity attacks. But Earth's defense network had predicted this move. Quantum fields appeared between the Imperial ships, cutting off their communication and disrupting their coordination. "Their ships are built for fighting together," Walker explained to his officers. "They've never had to fight alone." The battle turned into chaos for the Empire. Their ships, cut off from each other, couldn't coordinate their attacks. Some tried to retreat, only to find their engines wouldn't respond. Others fired blindly, their weapons either missing completely or being redirected back at them by the quantum shields. "Sir," Officer White reported, "they're launching their second wave." Another 1,000 ships moved forward, but Earth was ready. Hidden platforms around the moon activated, creating a web of gravity fields. Imperial ships found themselves being pulled in different directions, their crews helpless against forces they didn't understand. Walker watched as the mighty Imperial fleet fell into confusion. "Launch our ships," he ordered. From hidden bases around Earth, humanity's own fleet emerged. They were smaller than the Imperial ships, but they didn't need size. Each one was equipped with gravity drives and quantum shields, making them nearly impossible for the Empire to hit or track. Earth's ships moved through the Imperial fleet like ghosts. They didn't need to destroy the enemy vessels. They simply used focused gravity fields to disable their weapons and engines. One by one, the pride of the Imperial fleet was reduced to floating hulks. "Status report," Walker called out. "Enemy fleet is in disarray," Officer White replied. 40% of their ships are disabled. Another 30% are trapped in gravity fields. The rest are trying to retreat. The Emperor's voice came through again, but this time it shook with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. We are the Empire. We cannot be defeated by primitives." "You made one mistake," Walker responded calmly. "You thought technology was only about energy weapons and bigger ships. You never imagined someone might find a completely different way to fight." The battle had lasted less than an hour, but its impact would echo across the galaxy. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Imperial fleet was in retreat. Ships that could break planets were running from an enemy they couldn't even properly see or fight. In the command center, Earth's defenders allowed themselves to celebrate quietly. They had won their first major battle, but they knew the war was far from over. The Empire would return, probably with their full fleet next time. But now they knew something important. The Empire could be beaten. And soon, the rest of the galaxy would know it too. 1 week after their defeat, the Empire returned. This time, Emperor Marcus Aurelius II himself led the attack in his massive flagship. The vessel was unlike anything Earth had seen before. a city-sized ship that glowed with strange energies. Sensors detect 5,000 new ships joining the fleet. Officer White reported in Earth's command center. They've brought everything they have. Admiral Walker studied the tactical display. The Empire had positioned their ships in a new formation, learning from their previous defeat. But something else caught his attention. Hundreds of smaller ships moving between the larger vessels. They're deploying their secret weapon, Dr. Thompson announced, her eyes on the data screens. Psychic amplifiers. They're going to try to break our people's will to fight. The Emperor's voice boomed across all communication channels. People of Earth, witness the true power of the Empire. Your technology may protect your bodies, but can it protect your minds? The small ships activated, sending waves of fear and despair toward Earth. On previous worlds, this weapon had caused entire populations to surrender in minutes. But Earth had prepared for this too. Activate the Psi shields, Walker ordered calmly. Dr. Thompson pressed a series of controls. Around Earth, hidden quantum fields shifted frequency. The Empire's psychic attack hit these fields and dissolved harmlessly. What? The Emperor's voice showed genuine shock. How did you? 50 years of study, Walker replied. We saw what you did to other worlds. Did you think we wouldn't prepare for everything? The Emperor's response was to order his fleet to attack. This time, they used their most powerful weapons, planet killers that had destroyed entire worlds. The space around Earth lit up with enough energy to shatter a solar system. But Earth's quantum shields held firm. Decades of preparation had created defenses that could withstand anything the Empire could throw at them. The shields didn't just block the attacks, they absorbed the energy and redirected it. Now, Walker commanded, show them what we learned from their own weapons. Earth's defense platforms activated, using the absorbed energy from the Empire's attacks. The energy was focused through quantum fields, becoming more powerful than even the Empire's weapons. Several Imperial ships vanished in flashes of light as their own energy was turned against them. Impossible, the Emperor raged. Our scientists spent thousands of years perfecting those weapons. And we spent 50 years figuring out how to beat them, Dr. Thompson replied. Your problem, Your Majesty, is that you stopped learning. You thought you knew everything there was to know about science and war. The Emperor tried a new tactic. His ship launched what looked like missiles, but they were actually data pods containing images of the Empire's past victories. They showed worlds burning, civilizations falling, billions being enslaved. It was meant to demonstrate the futility of resistance. But when the images reached Earth's screens, Walker simply smiled. Your Majesty, we've seen all this before. We've studied every world you destroyed, every battle you won. That's why we knew exactly how to beat you. The Emperor's next words carried a hint of desperation. What are you? How could primitives like you prepare so well? We're human, Walker answered. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's learning from history. We saw what happened to other worlds and decided we wouldn't share their fate. Earth's defense fleet moved forward, their quantum drives allowing them to appear and disappear at will. They struck the Imperial ships with precise gravity attacks, disabling weapons and engines without destroying the vessels. You had 1,000 years of victory, Walker continued. But you never faced an enemy who spent half a century preparing specifically to defeat you. Your empire is built on overwhelming force and fear. But what happens when those don't work? In his flagship, the Emperor watched helplessly as his fleet was systematically disabled. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never expected to feel in battle. Fear. Earth had not just resisted. They had completely changed the rules of warfare. And now, the Empire was learning a harsh lesson about the danger of underestimating humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. News of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On thousands of conquered worlds, people began whispering about the small blue planet that had stopped the unstoppable Empire. Hope, long forgotten under Imperial rule, began to stir again. In Earth's command center, Admiral Walker received an unexpected transmission. It came from the leaders of 10 different conquered worlds, secretly meeting despite the Empire's strict rules against communication between planets. "We have watched your battles," said one alien leader, his hologram flickering with interference. "For 1,000 years, we believed the Empire could not be defeated. You have proven otherwise." Walker shared a look with Dr. Thompson before responding. "The Empire is powerful, but not invincible. They relied too much on their old victories and forgot to keep learning and growing." "We want to fight back," another leader said. Her species looked almost plant-like, with green skin and leaf-like hair. "But we lack your defensive technology. The Empire would destroy our worlds before we could resist." Walker smiled. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for. "What if we could help you protect your planets? What if we could share our quantum shield technology?" The alien leaders looked shocked. Sharing advanced technology was forbidden by Imperial law. But their eyes showed hope, the first real hope their peoples had felt in generations. "My friends," Walker continued, "Earth didn't develop these defenses just to protect ourselves. We spent 50 years preparing to help free the galaxy." Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "We've already prepared simplified versions of our quantum shields. They can be built using materials available on most worlds. The Empire won't be able to detect them until they're activated." The next few days saw intense activity as Earth secretly transmitted shield plans to resistance groups across the galaxy. The Empire, still reeling from their defeats at Earth, didn't notice the quiet preparations happening on their subject worlds. "Sir," Officer White reported one morning, "we're getting reports from the outer colonies. 3 worlds have activated their shields and declared independence from the Empire." Walker watched the tactical display as red dots, representing Imperial control, began turning green one by one. The Empire's ships found themselves suddenly unable to suppress rebellions on multiple fronts. "Their fleet is splitting up," Dr. Thompson observed. "They're trying to fight everywhere at once." "And that's their mistake," Walker replied. "Their ships are designed to fight together. When they spread out, they become much weaker." More reports came in. 5 more worlds had risen up, then 12 more. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was slipping. Their once unstoppable fleet was stretched thin, trying to maintain control over too many systems at once. Earth's defense fleet launched into action, but not to fight. Instead, they began protecting newly freed worlds, teaching them how to use their new defensive systems. Walker had transformed Earth's military from a defensive force into the guardians of galactic freedom. The Emperor's voice, when it came through the communications channel, sounded tired. "You haven't just defied us. You've started a revolution." "No, Your Majesty," Walker corrected him. "We didn't start it. We just showed people it was possible. You ruled through fear because you thought fear was the strongest force in the universe. But hope is stronger. And now that people have hope, your empire cannot stand." Across the galaxy, more worlds joined the rebellion. The Empire's fleet, once 10,000 ships strong, was now scattered and weakened. They had never learned to fight a war on multiple fronts because they had never needed to before. In the command center, Earth's leaders watched as their 50 years of preparation bore fruit. They had not just saved their own world, they had given the galaxy a chance at freedom. And now, that chance was becoming a reality, one world at a time. 3 months after Earth shared its defensive technology, the galaxy had changed forever. The Empire's grip on power was crumbling. Over 500 worlds had declared their independence, protected by quantum shields that made them immune to Imperial attacks. In Earth's command center, Admiral Walker studied a galactic map showing the Empire's shrinking territory. Green lights representing free worlds now outnumbered the red dots of Imperial control. "The Emperor has requested a meeting," Officer White announced. "Not to threaten us this time. He wants to negotiate." Walker nodded. After 1,000 years of absolute power, they finally want to talk. "Display his transmission." The Emperor's hologram appeared, but he looked different now. His proud stance was gone, replaced by the tired posture of a ruler watching his empire fall apart. "You've won," the Emperor said simply, "not just against our fleet, but against our very way of thinking. Half our worlds are in rebellion. Even our loyal planets are demanding changes." "They're not in rebellion, Your Majesty," Walker replied. "They're fighting for freedom. There's a difference." Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "We're forming the Free Worlds Alliance. Every planet will have an equal voice. Even Earth won't have special powers or privileges. That's the difference between an alliance and an empire." The Emperor's expression showed confusion. "You have the power to rule them all. Your technology is superior. Why would you give up that advantage?" "Because that's not who we are," Walker explained. "Earth spent 50 years preparing not to become a new empire, but to end the very idea of empires. Power shouldn't belong to whoever has the biggest fleet or the strongest weapons." Around them, the command center hummed with activity as reports came in from across the galaxy. More worlds were joining the alliance every day. Earth's defense fleet, now joined by ships from other free worlds, patrolled space to protect newly liberated planets. "What are your terms?" the Emperor asked, his voice heavy with defeat. Walker shared a look with the council members before responding. "The Empire will recognize the independence of any world that chooses to leave. You'll keep the worlds that freely choose to stay with you. But no more conquests, no more forced subjugation. And if we refuse, then we'll keep sharing our shield technology until every world in your empire is beyond your reach," Dr. Thompson said. "But more worlds will be damaged in the fighting. More lives will be lost. Is your pride worth that cost?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. 1,000 years of history and tradition rested on his decision. Finally, he spoke. "We accept your terms. The Galactic Empire formally recognizes the Free Worlds Alliance." After the transmission ended, celebration broke out in the command center. But Walker remained serious, knowing their work wasn't finished. "Now comes the hard part," he said to his officers. "Building peace is harder than winning wars. The Alliance will need guidance to stay true to its principles." "Earth will help them," Dr. Thompson replied. "Not as rulers, but as teachers and protectors. We've shown them how to defend themselves. Now we'll show them how to build something better than an empire." In the following weeks, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered on Earth to sign the Alliance Charter. The document, written in simple language that any species could understand, guaranteed freedom and equality for all member worlds. The Empire, though greatly reduced, survived as a small group of worlds that chose to remain under imperial rule. But they were no longer a threat to galactic peace. Earth's defense fleet, now part of the Alliance's combined forces, stood ready to protect any world that asked for help. Admiral Walker stood at the signing ceremony, watching representatives from 1,000 different species come together in peace. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. Earth had not just defended itself, it had changed the galaxy forever. "This is how liberty spreads," he said quietly, "not through conquest or force, but by showing people a better way, by giving them hope." And across the galaxy, a new age began. An age where freedom and cooperation replaced fear and domination. An age that started because one small planet dared to say no to an empire.